Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's February 1st. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and uh, I thought I'd show you the daily chart here first. You can see that we came down here once, bounced, came back, twice, bounced, came down again, third time. So we got a triple test down here, and prices rocketed out of here. Um, we still have a little short-term channel going up here. It's obviously still in play, and we did close above the midline today, which is this purple right in the middle here. We may rally on out of here. We were definitely way oversold, so it doesn't surprise me there that we're bouncing back like this. We'll just have to see if we take it all back or if something's gonna. There's a chance we could come back here and test this breakout of the pink area. That's a little trading range, a little congested area, and there's also a possibility we could come back after the break of this blue channel and retest this. And maybe I just didn't draw. It's possible I didn't draw this right. Maybe this is much steeper, and it could be like so. And in that case, we did get a close outside. We didn't really get a new low though, but a lot of times when you find strong support, as we have across here where we bounced over time, you don't get a new low. But we definitely tried, and that may be why we hung around in there, because we were trying to make a new low. Um, that looks like a possibility. I'm not crazy about it, but it definitely looks valid. I'm still leaning towards this being it. Actually, how did I have that? I think I had it more like so. I don't know, I've changed it. Seemed like everything was inside there before. I'm not quite sure how. But to go back and look at the previous video, maybe it was a little more like so. That's probably how I had it right there, because I mean, you can see we closed on that one right there. We closed on it right there. Or we bounced off of it right there. We closed right at it. Here we bounced right off. So maybe that's how I had it. Something doesn't feel right compared to how I had it. I wish I hadn't changed it now, but we still bounced out of here. Same thing, regardless. I mean, we're still looking at the same picture, unless maybe it's right here. Maybe you could consider that's where the downtrend started. That actually looks pretty good right there. And here you get the close outside, but you still didn't make the new low. So that actually looks the best out of all of them I've drawn now. Um, anyway, just something to consider. There's a chance we may make a retest of the lows here either way, but this is looking really positive on a bounce out of here. 3 straight rally days, and not only are we rallying pretty good, but the volatility has dropped some. Today got a little more volatile. I think it's because we've rallied a good bit and we were near this resistance area, but we worked on through it in the afternoon, and we'll switch over and look at that chart. Okay, and you can see the range here, but you can see where we broke loose this afternoon. For the most part, this was a range day. Really, like the last 30 minutes of the day, we rallied outside the range, and there's really no setups. And then from there on, we did rally quite a bit more, but it's in the after hours. So it's a little hard to know exactly what's going on here. So we just got to kind of wait and see. But it looks to me like we may rally on higher. And you notice that if we did a measured move, it was right in here. It didn't look like we were going to get there, but we shot right up there, right near the close, and actually pushed on through. So never think those targets aren't achievable even when there's not much time left, because you can see it, we rocketed on up there. And actually, I think if you measured it from down all the way down here, it's almost a perfect measured move, and it actually fits better. We got more touches right here, and you do get bounces there too. But if you use the very low closes there, it makes sense why we came back here a couple of times, and you can see. So I generally like to leave it where you get the most touches with closes, and to me, that looks more valid right there. So I'm going to leave it there. That's normally where I would put it and leave it during the trading day. But let's back out. You had to be patient today. There just weren't any trades early on. I mean, I've got a few green ones here, but I didn't see anything I really liked. It just wasn't. I mean, you can see there was very low volume in here early this morning. I mean, generally by this time we would probably have this much price action all the way over to here just in the overnight, and we don't have it today. So maybe the massive selling that's been going on has come to an end, and people are feeling a little better about things, or maybe they're just holding for now. We'll just have to see. But anyway, let's zoom on in here and talk about these trades. 7 o'clock came just as we're rallying up out of here, right through here. You've basically got a double bottom right here, and you get a first entry and then a second entry that fails. It's not a great. It's definitely two legs up, but it's a relatively, it's a pretty big correction there for a day that it's been pretty slow so far, but it's still a failure, but it's only a first entry long. I marked it as a green possibility on a failure. I don't think you definitely couldn't take that trade, just trading the uptrend and the trend line. And that's another thing. I liked it because it was at the trend line and the EMA. So you had double support behind you. You just had to find another reason to enter because you don't have a second entry. You don't have a very good signal bar. But if you consider the failure, then you may take the trade. So, and this is a new low. It's a little convoluted and hard to see. But you can see we had a swing low right there, and then we went higher, and then we came back down and made a lower high. So that's a new low right there. So first entry, second entry right up here. So it moved a pretty good bit, but it's still, the way things have been lately, I would still count that as a failure. So it's not one that I feel 100% about, but it's on up there. So I'll just mark it green and leave it at that. But we continue to go higher. Still, I don't see any entries in there. Then we sold off. No entries down. We turned back up. I just don't see any entries in here. Finally, you get one here. Notice you got a double top. You try to go higher once. You push through the EMA. You come back. The problem here is if you move that, you can see we didn't break higher. We just made a 2-bar matching high. But if you understand, that's similar to a new swing, prices going higher, and you see that signal bar. You may not even been able to get in this, as you can see, because it gaps over. If you dropped a limit order in there and didn't try to get a little better entry, you might have got in it, but I don't recommend that on this trade. So it's another one that if you were lucky enough for it to get your order in fast, it pulled back, then that's great. I'm only going to mark it green though. But we run down, you get a close outside, try to go higher twice, and you turn down. That's a tempting short, but that's obvious congestion, and you see it didn't go very far. Even though you would have got your scalp, it didn't go very far, and it bounces. And it's just hard to know what prices are doing in here. Then we went in this little range. We broke out lower, made a measured move down, and tried to go higher before we eventually went lower. There's a possible failed second entry long here. That's basically a double top. So first entry, second entry. It's a lot of sideways stuff here, though. I wouldn't really call that congestion. There's not the no-bodied bar, but you can see the stems on both sides, the bars stacking up. And this is your signal bar anyway, but on a failure, it wouldn't matter. The failure would have come right below that bar. That's a possibility. I did not mark it. but it does look like a failed second entry long. And you can see that once it broke lower, it didn't, you got a quick scalp, but then it kind of went sideways before it went lower. And again, I just don't see it taking that trade right there. The support's right here, so you would expect prices to try to go test that, but then it drops on down. Definitely don't take anything there. And it looks like it's going to be a failure. We do have a break and a new low here. There's also a two-legged move down to the lows of this. So this is one of those that you got to be real careful with, but you might try to, this is probably going to at least come back and test this area and probably the EMA, and it's probably going to fail and get back in the range. So you may take that one. And I say this a lot, these trades are very risky. You need to know what you're doing. But the thing is, if you take one and you get it right, for, with extra risk will come extra reward. And you easily get a runner here. They tried to come back, but they can't quite get it, and you could have ridden this all the way up. So just something to think about there. And, even if you just rode this up, actually you got a break outside here. So the next, it'd be hard to ride this out through that. So let's just assuming you got out right there. It's still 9 points, $450 per contract. But if you rode it all out and you just got to where you made your new high and then turned down, which would have been right there, that's 20 points. So generally I'm going to exit when it gets outside that trend line like that, personally. But you may manage yours a little differently. You may want to take a little more risk on it. But anyway, with that risk comes some pretty nice moves. But if you miss this, you still get a first entry, second entry failure, and that's a true reversal, and you get a double test, right? Notice you broke out, and you come back, you test that twice. Look at that bar. Just go long right there on that failed second entry short. We come back, and you get a second entry right here. However, that signal bar is not good enough. Wouldn't have mattered, but you still don't want to risk it. And then now you got a break, move to a new high, and you found the resistance at the same place here where you had it before, and you make two legs down. That's a failed second entry short right there. The only problem was that rallied back through the EMA a little stronger than I like, so I wasn't sure about it. But draw your trend line there, and when it comes back and makes a lower high right there with that big bearish bar, that's the better place to go. And it's still not a perfect entry because there's some support right here. Just make sure you got room to get out. Turns out it doesn't matter, but you don't really know that. There's a failure right here too, and that's another one you could argue for. But you can clearly see there's some support resistance on that close right there from yesterday. And so with it bouncing right there, I just don't like going short below it because it could do exactly what it did, but you may not get out. So runs up and you get a second entry short, but the signal bar is too good. Runs down, make a new low, chops around trying to make another leg, and then we're off to the races. And again, you don't get any setup. This is one of those days where it keeps flip-flopping. And you don't get a lot of setups. Now, once we got up in here, there's a few more trades than what we were seeing. Mark that. Let me just mark that a different color. Let's make it a little easier to see. I marked this one blue. You can clearly see this channel working up. You get a close outside. So you expect prices to make a new high. That's the first convincing close outside. But if you start down here at the new low, you get a first entry and you get a second entry. So you could treat that like a failure, and that's a pretty good signal bar. So the odds are, and we aren't back to the highs yet, so the odds are we're probably going to retest that high. We may go all the way back up here. And notice we made two legs up, and we didn't quite get there. Then we made a lower high, still way away from the EMA. Prices are probably going to snap back. This turns out to be a pretty good trade. It probably gets your runner here, depending on how you managed it. But if not, you probably get a pretty good move here. But again, this is a double top, and you come down, you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry right at the EMA. The only reason I made this one green and didn't make it blue is because it's kind of a neutral bar, and generally the bar doesn't matter on a trap. However, there's another little zigzag right here, even though I would still call this the failure right here, because this is the first close outside. But a lot of times once you get closed outside the EMA, or I'm sorry, outside the trend line, you want to draw your little short-term trend. And let that play out right there. And so that kind of negates that trade. I still made it green because there's some reasons to consider that a failure, but I'm not crazy about it. And then of course we bounce like crazy. Try to go short once, try to go short twice, plus you also get a first entry, second entry. So there's a second entry long and a failed second entry short. I like that one. Nice trade. We finally get a close outside, push to a new high, and then you make a lower high here. We're probably going to at least come back to the EMA again here, and that's where the strong resistance is. But there's not a lot of room there, so maybe you wait on the reversal, and that comes here. When it breaks higher and turns down, you got them there. That's a great place to go short. And then you run up and you get a first entry, second entry, but that's an inside bar, not very good. You might have considered this the second entry, but now you got a good bit of support across there by this time. We've been bouncing across there multiple times, so I wouldn't be too eager to go short there. In fact, you probably be better off to take that bounce back up. I didn't mark it again because this is a little, I mean, you can see we're still below the EMA. There may be enough room to get back to scalp out right there. I'm pretty sure there probably is. Yeah, there's 2.25 points there, so there's plenty of room. So, I mean, if anything, you might go long right there because of the triple test, the break and the new low. You tested it once, twice, 3 times really. That's like a quadruple test. So you may go long right there. I'm not going to mark it blue because this is a little convoluted right in here, but there's definitely strong support and a reason to consider maybe buying there. We can run up, hit the EMA, come back down, then you get a first entry, second entry, not a second entry short you want to take. That's all congested. Bounces, get your first break. There's a high or low here, but that's all sideways and definitely congested. And then finally we make a triple. We finally push on up and come back, and now you got a triple test right there. Notice that low, you test it once, you test it twice, pretty good bar. So if we break higher, you got plenty of room to get out. So I like that trade. Then we run up, we make a first entry, we make a second entry. So that's also a second entry long and a failed second entry short and a nice signal bar. So I like going long there. We just end up finding more resistance up here before we make 2 legs down again. And we bounce. We don't get rejection here this time. We do get a higher low, but again, we're still below the EMA. And then we're just kind of chopping sideways here. But notice there is a trend line working up, and we hadn't got back to these highs yet. So when it gives you a first entry, second entry, along with also giving you a 1, 2, 3 test, you might have even looked at this as a 1, 2, 3 triple test right there. So you might could have entered there because that confirms the trend line. But when we made the higher low in the second entry here, and you can see it, that's where I preferred to enter. But you might have entered right here and just entered saying, hey, that's a triple test. That just wasn't convincing enough to me, but you can see it there. So 1, 2, 3 triple test, and then here it just looks like a higher low, and again you get another test of that support, plus you get a first entry, and that's a second entry long. On a second entry alone, that's not a good enough signal bar, but because of the other reasons here, you may take that trade. because it's definitely, once you try to, anytime you try to do something multiple times and fail, I mean, you can see how many times we tried to go lower there. Of course, we tried to go higher a few times, but consistently we've been coming back up and testing these highs across here each time. So once you fail that many times to the downside, I like it to the upside, especially with the trend line that's forming right there. That's what really gives you a little extra information that you can see that trend line holding easily. And this thing takes off. You don't know that it's going to do that. You're really just looking for a scalp, but that turns out to be probably one of the better trades of the day. But they trapped the shorts here most likely. And plus, when they broke out up here, they ran a few stops. And that took us into 230. I don't see anything else up here. I mean, you would expect this breakout to maybe fail. And so you need a really good setup to go long, and we don't really get anything. And we get on into 230. So I didn't mark anything after that. So yeah, as you can see, for the most part, this was just a range day. And we did spend a good bit of the day in the upper half of it as well. So you got to take that into account as well. But anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush with this. We've been having some long chart lessons. So the fact that we've been able to keep them around 20 minutes the last couple of days, that's great. So I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next.